Welcome back to Spork Syndicate. My name is Tom. It's the Silva Challenge. Let's have some fun. There were two different scales of die-cast vehicles in the package Jim sent me. 1/64th cars and slightly smaller heavy trucks. I decided to work with the big vehicles, but I would also include the shark car, the helicopter, and the stubby self-propelled thing that looks like it came from a robot. But the overall inspiration came from a video my son saw.
Oh my God, it's a truck carrying a truck carrying a truck carrying a truck!
And an idea was born. I would link these trucks like a land train. First was the self-propelled four-wheel thing. It reminded me of an airport pushback tractor, which is what they used in the movie Aliens as a model for the Colonial Marines armored personnel carrier. I'm going to mount the helicopter on top of the pushback tractor because of this image I saw online. Not something that hasn't been done before by colleagues. And what better way to start the train than with a big old shark on the front? In my mind, this thing evolved from whatever the builders could find, including perhaps the shark that pops out of the water at the Universal Studios theme park. So it's a wagon train, but what's its destination? Initially, it was going to be a nomadic tribe, like the train in Snowpiercer, constantly moving across the wasteland, but in search of what? Running from what? War rigs and land trains like this should have a defined purpose. They'll burn too much gasoline just to keep driving. Just keep driving, just keep driving, just keep driving, driving, driving. That's when this became a passenger train, and buses would be the cars. And I'd stack them like the vertical trailer parks in Ready Player One. The buses would be mounted on top of flatbeds or something. I'm still figuring it out at this point. So that's 7 of the vehicles Jim sent me. Plus, I added a few of my own, but it'll take more than just casting stuck together to bring this thing to life. Like any customizer, I had plenty of parts to bring to the party. Didn't take long to figure out the unique skull Jim included had a great spot right on top of the helicopter. After a trim, I was able to screw the shark into the post of the tractor pusher from above. I removed the driver's seat from the shark, and now I have an instant turret for the front gunner. Each train car would be a combination of several castings. The idea would be to ride above the ground, like the construction equipment, and be less vulnerable to attacks. For the front car, the name Sharky came to mind. The tractor trailer and front loader would be like the coal car behind the engine, providing support. Only this one would be providing fire support, as well as the power of its diesel engines. Because of all that firepower, and because it was a combination of 2 vehicles, I named it Frick and Frack, even though Frick and Flack might have been more accurate. I really enjoy kit bashing. Although it requires grinding parts and finding the best way to join them together, it's inventing something entirely new. It's starting to take shape and make a mess. The next pair are the Hot Wheels truck and Matchbox construction dump truck. Had to wheel swap them both so they had clearance on the salt flats. I knew this gas trailer from the dollar store would come in handy. Guzzy, the gasoline car, is one of 2 tanks for this train. The other is water for the passengers, which is also a dollar store find. To add some armor and walkways for the crew to defend the fuel, I used styrene. I also used this as a means to secure the tank and protect the wheels beneath. If I were a wasteland pirate, this would be the first car I'd try to steal. Some more fortifications, including a mesh wall to protect the tires. In the box from Jim was some leftover 3D print material, kind of like a sprue for model parts. To me, it looked like a great piece of armor to protect the tank. Next up, some wire work. These were practical to provide support, but also to add detail to the build. I wanted it to look like a very long rat rod. How could I not have such a project and not include at least one Spork? And I found a way to include the Duesenberg, at least some of it. The War Rig in Mad Max Fury Road had a Volkswagen Beetle atop the tank as a turret. Guzzy has a Duesenberg. I love the look of the Hot Wheels Surf and School Bus, but the beautiful tampos had to go, and once you work them off, in this case with a dry erase marker and a paper towel, they'd take on an altogether different look. Another bus I had to include was the Hot Wheels Trouble Decker. It's a drag racing version of an English double-decker bus, kind of like how Hot Wheels turned a British cab into the Cockney cab. The scale is a little off, but the red look would be an excellent accent color. The Hot Wheels Raging Express, one of the last designed by the late Ryu Asada, is an original based on the Japanese Dekotora, a subgenre of customization which started after a series of 1970s Japanese movies called Turaku Yoro, or Truck Guys, perhaps a Japanese precursor to the Fast and the Furious franchise. It's all in the details. The buses couldn't look brand new. They had to be dented, scratched. Not pretty. That's why the Trouble Decker lost its tail spoiler and blown motor. And that's why this premium RV had to be scuffed up. The village was starting to take shape. At this point, I was still working on the foundation. Then I found this tin sheet. I bent the edges to form a frame and began stacking. Some of the buses wouldn't make it, but the village would still be sizable. Needed to grind some bases flat. Fortunately, only 2 of the village's 8 vehicles had metal bases. I also envisioned the whole thing armed like a wooden warship, with guns sticking out of the windows or anywhere they could mount them. Building the village was like building a house. The foundation was a pair of just trucks frames, which I fitted with square styrene tubes. Wires and glue would complete the bond so the heavy payload on top wouldn't rock or break apart. Once the foundation was in place, I continued building up. The water tank was central, like a cramped courtyard, with the protection of the vehicles around it. Time for aging and damage. I used a lot of different tools to create the wear and tear absorbed from trips across the wasteland. I found the steel wool heads on my Dremel very good for burnishing finishes. The first floor was in place. To build up, I needed something smooth. More drilling, wires, and glue, and the village came into focus. Since it was the tallest of the cars, I added a mast to it, complete with rigging and a crow's nest to scan the horizon. But how would this thing move? It was just dead weight. Enter Mule 1 and Mule 2, two Matchbox six-wheeled armored vehicles from the Jurassic Park set. I called them mules because they would be piloted remotely and just be engines, no guns or personnel. I linked them side by side like sled dogs or horses to tow the big structure. Later, I would create a link between the car in the front of the mules, Guzzy, the tanker, with an upside-down hitch, like the arresting hook of a fighter jet on an aircraft carrier. The idea would be if the convoy came under too much fire, the guzzling would go one way and the passengers another. I'm so glad I hung on to that interesting outlet frame. It made a perfect tongue to which the mules and Guzzy could attach. On to Kaboom, the caboose. I was able to work in one more vehicle from Jim's box, the Matchbox Michelin six-wheeler. That brought the total to 8 of the vehicles from Jim's box included in the build. I contributed 12 of my own. I propped the weapons in the bed on top of some of the 3D printed tires. It was a tire truck after all. Additional protection comes from a tube frame from a pickup truck and a part of a broken car carrier trailer from my childhood collection. Kaboom is towed by Mule 3, a Matchbox 1965 Ford C900 cab. But I imagine there's a power plant in the caboose itself as well. Heck, I don't imagine, I declare. It's my build, and I can do what I want. The hitch linking the two was originally wood, but it didn't offer enough flex. I kept this piece from a mine-hunting tank. It made the perfect fortified hitch to the Village, which sits much higher than Mule 3. Like the others, I drilled holes in the bumper and wired things together. I wanted this bad boy to hold up. The hitch between the Village and Kaboom had to be strong, so I used something thicker and stronger than a paperclip. I also added some rubber wire sleeves to the final bond to act like cables and help the two structures stay tethered. I could take that hook deep sea fishing. Back to the front. Because it's the tip of the very long spear, Sharky needed some more aging and damage. And firepower. One more touch. Barbed wire. All the cars would get a ring of it to stop unwanted entry. I saw Christopher at Gaslands NorCal use this in a build, and I had to have it. Found it on eBay. Looks a lot safer now. And there it is. After almost 3 weeks, the build is finally complete. Hello, Cha-Cha. What's that? Oh, forgot to link Guzzy and the Village. Oops. Since this would be the breakpoint in a crisis, this is where I put the arresting hook-styled hitch. And I forgot to add water lines from the tank to either side of the courtyard in the Village. And check this out. My Dremel steel wool attachment takes shiny hubcaps off plastic wheels. Time to pack up and go to the paint booth. Before going into the booth, I had to set the whole thing out in the sunlight. And it's more than a yard of cars. 39 inches from the tip of Sharky's gun to Kaboom's back bumper. But there's too many white pieces and bright colors for the wasteland. First came matte black. Looked just like diesel exhaust and artillery damage. It's burned, but now it has to get dirty. Back inside we go, but first... What do you think, Jax?
Yeah, good. This looks insane.
Aging and rusting things is still a new adventure to me. What you see here photographs red like blood, but it's RNG base coat for the rust layer. When I built the Gigaspeeder, I painted the twin blowers brightly. In this case, I ended up with a lemon lime feel on Mule 1. Then, it's time for makeup. You can get this at the dollar store and it makes great rust and dirt. If you cake it up with a little paint, you'll get some texture, kind of like salt chipping. This is Lew from Fraga Studios, and we're going to take some real pictures. Here's our diorama. Yeah. I figure I went too far with this custom, so I have to go too far with its filming.
Overkill is underrated.
Jim, thank you for putting on this awesome challenge. You said, have fun, and I did just that. For Spork Syndicate, this is Tom, and see you again real soon.